Hi, everyone. It's Phyllis here. And I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone who is just really supportive of my work here on Substack and YouTube Shorts. It's been really interesting to get the feedback on the topics that I've chosen. Um, and it's really lovely to hear what topics you are looking to hear about, just to get my opinion on them. So yeah, it's really lovely to have this two-way interaction. I'm really enjoying it. One of the topics that has been highlighted for just my own personal self uh, recently has been around the topic of empathy, empathic skills, empathy. You're really empathic. I've got a lot of empathy for people. And I think we're seeing people who definitely don't have any empathy or empathic skills. They tend to be more of that. The pole opposite would be a narcissist or someone with psychopathic or controlling tendencies. And the empathics are all on the other side of the scale, the more allowing, gentle, softer energy. So I thought I'd do a series during June of just uh, deconstructing the world of an empathic person because it's through my journey of research that I've discovered a bigger understanding or a deeper understanding of who I am as an empathic person. So, what is an empathic person? What are the empathic traits that we hold, and how do we recognize them in ourselves? So the empathic traits are evident in an individual who show genuine concern for those around them. So people who are being really authentic. So that would be those conversations where they ask how you are rather than they jump in and just talk about themselves all the time. They have this genuine need to connect with someone. These individuals excel at active listening. So if you've got friends who sit there being really quiet, it's not that they are not interested in what you're saying. They're just feeling every word that you're saying. And there is a huge difference there. I am definitely an active listener. So when I'm in crowds of people or in groups or being introduced to new people, I am exceptionally quiet because all of the while, which I've now come to understand, all the while I'm feeling beneath the words that are being said. So I'm actively listening to what they're saying. And we listen without interruption. No judgment, no interruption. We're just there. We're just right there with that person. And we're interpreting what is being said. Our sensitivity to the feelings of others' viewpoints offers or allows us to sort of respond in a deep sense of understanding and meaningful support. So, because we're really actively listening, we hear everything that's being said. It can be a good trait, it can be a negative trait as well, because I definitely know when I overthink things because I've been actively listening. Um, but what I think it allows your friends to really appreciate is that they've been heard. Because quite often people are talking, but they're not heard either by their partner, their family, their work colleagues, or general conversation. They're speaking, no one's hearing what they're saying. Whereas empathic people, we hear everything, we hear it. And what that does for us is, as an empath, we then alter our vibrational frequency. We then respond according to what we've just heard. So we mirror back some of what we've heard. I really heard that because that's really interesting. It's funny that you said that because and that shows that person that we're hearing what they're saying. And then we're responding with that sensitivity, and it highlights our expression of compassion, it extends comfort during a conversation with someone. It helps a person feel quite safe to actually explain what's happening in their life. They feel that when they do speak to a true empath, that the signals that they're giving, one will be read and heard, but the response will be a corresponding response. So there'll be the right level of compassion, the right level of safety or advice will come back to them. And so there's a real sense of genuine connection that comes with that. So we adapt our communication to meet the emotional needs of others. And that can be with a complete stranger. Um, I find myself doing that quite often. I think the older I get, the less that I worry about being judged. Because I do have really unusual, strange people who come and talk to me. My son went through a whole phase of not coming out for a coffee or for a meal with us, Michael and myself, because strange people would just talk to us. I think being in New Zealand and having a Scottish accent also helps. It draws them in, and they'll just intuitively talk about Scotland and where we're from and how long we've been here, and then they just open up to some really deep topics, which is a privilege, I suppose, that they feel safe enough to share that. So I think that's what we do. We adapt our communication style to meet the emotional needs of others, and that's how we then interact through these types of actions. Empathic people foster environments of trust, emotional safety, and making others feel valued and understood. And I think that when you do recognize, I'm hoping that just this little snippet, we've got 4 or 5 episodes to come on the whole topic of empathic skills. If you're starting to recognize that about yourself, then look at who you're surrounded by. Look at the genuine people you're surrounded by. Even when it comes to possibly doing some healing work, looking at your whole childhood. I was the quiet one. My sister was the loud, gregarious, outgoing one, and Phyllis was the really quiet one, or she's just really quiet. Even in workspaces, I was very quiet, mainly because I was busy tuning into the dynamic of what was not being said. And so, therefore, I could um, get my responses ready for all of the underlying things that were not being said, but were actually out there in the open. Well, I would just challenge that. And I think, again, as I'm older and understanding my empathic skills, I do challenge people quicker. So I don't waste my time, let's say, in listening to someone or being really polite per se, if what's being said doesn't really gel or doesn't make sense to me, or I'm feeling this other agenda, then I'll actually ask, I'm hearing what you're saying, but is this actually what you mean? And then we cut to the chase and we get to where we need to be really quickly. Um, and I think that comes from just a sense of confidence within myself, of trusting my empathic skills. And now, having done this research, really, really reflecting back on lots of incidents in my life that I didn't realize I was being empathic or using empathic traits and skills to navigate certain situations, but I definitely was using those skills now that I have a time to reflect or a greater appreciation of who I am as an intuitive person, who I am as an intuitive person. So I want you to sort of take time out between session 1 and session 2. We were going to look at the key traits of an empath in the next video. And it would be really great for you to share some stories where you, just from this little segment, you recognize aspects of yourself. But it's okay to be you. It's okay to be quiet. It is okay not to have lots of friends. It's okay if you have a child. And I think I'll do intuitive children for the month of July, because I get lots of questions from parents about that. But it's okay if you have a child who doesn't have lots of friends, because they're probably highly empathic and they'll go into a classroom and they go, well, I don't need to play with him and I don't need to play with her. And oh, she looks okay, right? I'll deal with that. And they only have one friend or one or two friends, then that's fantastic because they don't need hundreds of friends. I have like three people in New Zealand who are in my inner circle. I have lots of people on that outer circle, lots of people that I know and I can say hello to and I can go for a coffee with. But on a truly deep connection, I have three people. And it was really interesting in my early marriage years with Michael. And he's a really gregarious person. He is a social butterfly. And of course, I'm the quiet one. And there was a time when he tried to sort of set me up with friends. I had a very isolating job being a regional manager. So I was away from home a lot, I was in my car a lot, I was in hotels a lot. So I didn't really have time to create connections with people. But Michael would invite people in and we had a conversation about this just the other day because of my research. And I had to giggle. I was giggling about, a particular lovely young person that he said, oh, I found a friend for you, Phyllis. You have to be her friend. And as soon as I met this person, I went, no, actually, I don't have to be her friend because she really needs help. And I'm not the person to do that. And it transpired that, yes, she really did need help and I definitely wasn't the person to do that. And she wouldn't have been someone that I would have chosen to be my friend. But she was in and out of my life and guided her towards the help that she needed. So there's a purpose in that. I think for Michael, he out of his love and compassion for me, he thought he was doing a kindness, which he was. But empaths are quite isolated people, not because we're unfriendly or because we're standoffish or we're superior or we're arrogant. It's just because we can't turn it off. So, as an empathic person, we're constantly switched on. And we're switched on to such an extent that walking into a restaurant and you might be seated at a table. This happened recently in Australia. And I'd booked a table in this fantastic Italian on Exhibition Street in Melbourne. Love it. Go there every time we go. And we were seated inside, and I sat down, and the washer arrived, and I just said, I really can't be here. I'm sorry. This is not me. And the waitress went, oh, I said, look, we'll just go and sit outside. And I quite like the outside courtyard. It's a really lovely courtyard with the fairy lights and the music and people passing by. And it's got a lot more atmosphere. And so as soon as we sat outside, it was just like, oh, thank goodness. So that's an empath. We can't turn it off. It's got nothing to do with the people in the restaurant. It's just that sharp edges of vibration that just sets our nervous system um, into overdrive. And the only way we can negate that is to move to something else or change or leave. And I think for empaths, you know, we have to just allow ourselves to be who we are. We need to explain ourselves to our partners, our friends, so that they understand that you're not judging them or that you can't go to that restaurant for a particular reason. So once they get it, they get it. And again, don't be hard on yourself. If you only have a very select group of friends, because the vibration of those friendships are more important to you in that one or two people rather than having hundreds of friendships. So I'm hoping with that little snippet today, you are able to recognize some of yourself in that, reflecting on who you are, Let me know some instances where you too have walked into shop, walked into house, sat down in a restaurant and thought, oh, I really can't be here. And it isn't the restaurant, it is just your vibration. It's just your skills are just screaming, this vibration isn't right for you. You need to go. So give yourself permission to just be who you are. You get braver as you get older. I would say that is definitely my experience. I'm definitely braver the older that I have become. So join me for episode 2, which we're going to look at the key traits of empathic people. So I've given you an overview of what an empath is. Now we're going to dive in. We're going to dive in and see who we are and spot some of our own personal traits. So until the next time, bye for now.